What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the ARC podcast. I'm your host, Brand Zachary, here with my co-host, Matt Owens. Matt, how we doing today?
Yes, man. Excited to get this one going.
Awesome. So, for those who are new tuning in, this is the Athletes Resilience Center podcast where we talk all things mental performance and sports. Today's episode is going to be something that is important to Matt and I and things that we have seen throughout both of our careers and throughout our coaching careers about how you can kind of attack the end of the year reflection and game plan going into returning in the fall for campus, specifically for college athletes. This can be any kind of off-season programming, but specifically we're talking about high school kids, we're talking about college kids who are kind of prepping to get ready for their fall season when they return back to campus. So ultimately, they can be even better next season. So there are a lot of ways to go about this and a lot of different, game plans you can have. But first and foremost, the most important piece of it all is the reflection piece. Now, the reflection piece will happen right after your season is over. Typically, if you go to a pretty good school, you'll have the end of the year meeting with your coaches where they kind of give you their pieces of advice on what you need to work on in order to improve or in order to get more innings next year, in order to get more at bats, whatever it is. And a lot of the information that is provided there will help you kind of build out your plan and what your goals should look like for the summer. Now, Matt, from your perspective as a coach and being in some of those like end of the year meetings and reviews, right? How important is it for, a young college athlete to like take that information and mold it in order to like help them in their summer progression when they come back to campus in the fall?
Yeah, I mean, speaking from my just when I played in college, right? Like I think the greatest thing my coach did for me was pretty much lay it out, what I did well that year, what he needed to see more of from me, and pretty much just kind of like how to get there, right? And then always the strength component of that as well. That
Yep.
was always one thing that was going to be kind of, I don't want to say priority over the skill aspect, but it was something that was like, okay, this year you really need to attack this. Hey, I need you to come back a little bit faster. Hey, we need a couple more stolen bases here. So, you know, always put me in a league where I was going to get time as well, like in the summer. So those meetings were super important. And as an athlete, I think it's really important to take the criticism for what it's worth. It's constructive, right? It's supposed to help you head in a better direction for yourself, but also so that you can help the program, help the team out, kind of moving forward and everything.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a big piece of that too that pairs with the reflection from the coaching staff and kind of the review of how your year went is going to be the self-reflection piece, right? Like I think there are a lot of takeaways at the end of the season whether you feel pretty good about the performance that you put out there for the year or you don't feel so hot, right? Like there could be a lot of scenarios where you think you left a lot of meat on the bone for the year. Like maybe you didn't show up, maybe you were inconsistent. There's that self reflection piece where you can look back and think, okay, is this the performance that I am okay shelling out next year, right? Let's say theoretically if I did nothing. And hopefully, as any competitor, any athlete, they don't want to replicate the same year that they just had. They want to make it even better, right? That's the goal. Every year you want to get a little bit better. Every day you want to get a tiny bit better. So then when we come back in the fall, we are even better. We've acquired new tools for our tool belt to make us a better athlete overall. So that self reflection piece is really important. And if you're not very self aware, which some athletes are not, it is important to have that coach tell you, hey, this is what we need from you. Because there is some disconnect sometimes with coaches and athletes when it turns out like, hey, at the end of the year, you might have thought you had a great year, but they're looking for more out of you the next year, right? And I think that's fine. A coaching staff should be able to challenge you that way, should be able to push you that way. But there does need to be that level of accountability for yourself in order to be like, okay, there are things that I need to work on, even if I did have a great year. And that's what I'm going to attack this off season. That's what I'm going to go into the fall trying to achieve and get better at. So I feel like that piece is ultimately the most important part is that self-reflection, but pairing it with like the coach's review and reflection for that certain athlete at the time.
No, I agree, and I think that's the self reflection aspect is going to be most important in regardless anything you do in sports. I feel
Right.
like knowing where you stack up, knowing where you need to go, knowing where you want to go, knowing where you can't go. Right, like that is ultimately where every athlete needs to be kind of thinking, especially once you reach that off season point for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's tough because you know there is that level of self awareness that you need to have. If you walked 20 dudes in 20 innings that year, clearly there's a big red flag of something you need to work on, right? But if you're telling yourself in your head, right, you walk 20 guys in 20 innings, well, strike zone was tight, I was working on some things, I'll be fine for next year. That's not really the growth mindset that you need to have going into an off season, right? You need to attack the off season like it's the regular season in the fact that I'm going to try to compete every day and get better every day. So once you're able to kind of analyze that and really sit down and be honest with yourself about, hey, there are some weaknesses in my game that I need to improve on, that I need to build upon, then that's when you can sit down and say, okay, now I can make a game plan for going into this coming season. Um, Now, when we go about making plans for the summer, right, there's obviously the not opposing views, but there are, I'm going to take the summer off and just work on developing, right? Work on getting better. There's the other crowd where it's like, well, I need more innings. I need more playtime. I need more at bats. So I'm going to go play in a league. Now, I'd love to ask you, and I'd love to go back and forth because I feel like we have pretty similar views on kind of these situations where what would lead a kid to say, hey, I think the best route for me to go this summer is to develop and not necessarily play in a league, maybe build on some of the weaknesses that I had this season rather than say, I'm going to throw myself in a league and get more game like experience and go compete for longer during the summer.
Yeah, I think, the guys that need to get more game experience are the guys that don't play as much, right? Like if
Right.
you didn't play too much during the season, like you kind of were already training to play and you didn't play, right? So when you go in the summer, then you're like, okay, hey, I'm gonna train some more. There's no experience in there, right? There's
Right.
no kind of time under pressure. There's no you going out and competing against like a live arm as much as maybe you should or that you would need to be able to develop and everything like that. So the guys that don't play as much, it's super important I think for them to find a league where they're going to be able to get reps, in the field hitting. If you're a pitcher, be able to get amount of innings where then you can go out, have a little bit more freedom to work on things, try different things, and kind of find out who you are as a pitcher or what's going to work for you as you head into that next year so that you can get innings for your college team and everything of that nature, right? Whereas like the guy that might need to train a little bit more, maybe he's a guy that is kind of toward the top level already of his conference, of his team. He played a lot. Maybe, body's kind of fatigued and everything of that nature because at the end of the day, like, yes, you're trying to win every single time you're on the field, but there's a certain level of stress that's going to wear on you, mentally and physically. And if you're kind of just doing the same thing, right, like you want to be able to be better that next year. And in that summer, that might not necessarily help you get to that next level of better for whatever your talent is. It just really depends. But, you might get a little bit of improvement, right? Like if we go like a +2 of improvement, but because I played 30 games in the summer after I just played 50 in a college season,
Yeah.
cool. Well, what if you took that time to rest? Maybe that +2 turns to a +5, +5 turns to like a +7. Like you can make more momentous gains by not playing in the summertime after a season of actually playing a lot.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think you made a good point in the beginning where if you didn't play a lot in the season, especially, when you're younger, it's tough because you don't really know how to navigate it. But let's say, like, you're a sophomore and you've been through the program for a year and this is your second year and you're not playing that much. About a quarter to halfway through the season, you have a pretty good idea of where you stand on the depth chart. Obviously, things change and throughout the year, injuries happen. You can elevate yourself and practice and, in your in game opportunities, but you have a pretty decent understanding of where you kind of lie on the depth chart. So, a lot of those athletes can take that opportunity to use that as their development time period, right? Like they might be able to hit the gym a little bit more because their body's not as sore because they're not exerting themselves in the game as much. Maybe they're able to, again, same thing, get a little bit more like consistent and harder reps within practice because same thing, right? Could be pitchers, could be hitters, right? You're going to get more opportunities in practice than you are in the game, especially in the beginning and preseason, right? So taking that as your opportunity to develop then and then viewing your season as summer ball could be beneficial and helpful, right? Like if you're a pitcher that got 5 innings throughout your first year and you're kind of feeling a little, I don't know, deflated, I guess, throughout the year, you don't feel very inspired by the way you were used throughout the year. Playing summer ball can help a ton, right? You can get the innings under your belt. You can get that confidence again because, like they say, if you don't use it, you lose it. And if you're not throwing in game, it's hard to replicate exactly what that feels like in practice. And when you go to summer ball, and that's even a lower stressed situation in most summer ball leagues, I'll say, than your collegiate league, or at least it should be in a good collegiate program, right? So that summer ball, you can kind of implement, okay, this is my season. This is where I can go out and show out, right? And I can get my game experience underneath my belt. So I'm ready to come in come fall. And now instead of having 5 innings under my belt from the season, I have, let's say, 45 innings because I threw 40 innings throughout the summer, right? And now I'm feeling good, I'm cruising, I'm ready to go and attack the fall. So I feel like that's good. And on the other end, right, like we talked about the development piece, I feel like a big thing that I wish I kind of did, especially after my junior year and I threw a lot of innings, I went and I played in a summer league and I threw a lot of innings and I threw a lot of pitches. And I didn't really advocate for myself that the best thing for me at the time, who was also dealing with some control issues. Throughout that season, I didn't really feel like myself. I was very inconsistent. And I feel like at that point, prioritizing development would have been a lot more important for me than going in and just continuing to play and play and play and play, right? Because as much as we can make adjustments in season, as much as we can make adjustments in summer ball, right? There's nothing that'll replicate the full development period of I'm not playing games. All I'm doing is working on my craft every day. I'm throwing bullpens to work on things. I'm not in game situations where my main objective is to compete, right? I'm in situations where my main objective is to get better and develop and improve on things. And same thing as a hitter, right? Like if you have flaws in your swing, if you feel all out of sorts, if same thing, you played all season but you felt inconsistent, you had peaks where you were like, wow, I'm really good, peaks where you were like, or shallows where you were like, this is not so hot, right? There's things that you need to work on and improve over the summer, and throwing yourself in more games when you haven't figured out what the issue is might not be the solution.
Right. No, I agree. And to your point, like speaking from like experience, right? Like my freshman year, I think I had like 35 at bats, right? So I knew the one thing that I definitely needed to do that summer was get more reps. And from our perspective, like if you're a high school grad between, I'd say, anytime before 2016, player development wasn't necessarily at like the D3, D2 level, like a thing that was often talked about. So like the only option that you really had was to go and play, summer ball, right? Like you're going to get assigned to a league, you're going to go and play, and like that's just kind of how it always had been done. And then you kind of see this flip 2017, 2018 where guys aren't necessarily going as much playing summer ball, and it's especially dwindled down now where there's a ton of guys not playing summer ball, they're going and taking this development route. But like, my freshman year, I had no choice. Like, I'm going to go and play summer ball because that's all I knew that was an option, right? So you go and play, capitalize on 35 at-bats. I'd like to think I got a little bit better that summer and everything like that. And so I go into my sophomore year where I'm not necessarily like an everyday starter, but I'm starting like probably 85, 90% of the games, right? So there were still things in my game I really needed to work on to be able to be on the field 100% of the time. And then that summer I had the opportunity to go and play summer ball. Took it, And I think that's what really helped me because I played in a league that was over my talent level. So like every single day kind of helped me with my focus, helped me, kind of bring it, but also ultimately helped me develop because I was around better players and everything of that nature. So it's like you're competing against better talent. You're like, I got to step it up, right? So then going into my junior year, my summer team folded that I was going to go play for in one of the New York summer leagues, and then I kind of fell into a blessing where I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go to this player development place. They're gonna help
Yeah.
me
Right.
retool my swing, all this stuff. They introduced different things on the mental game to me. They had a strength program with it as well. So that helped me out a ton and tremendous. And the reason why I had a good senior year, my best year yet, because I really truly believe I took that summer, really recovered, and just kind of focused on like, okay, how can I myself become a better player rather than worrying about like, all right, what do my results look like today? Like, oh man, I didn't really handle the 90 mile per hour, cutter today, right? Like you're not really analyzing or over analyzing like at bats and everything like that. You're just worried about like, okay, when I come into work today, this is what I need to do. Okay, maybe I'm chasing a number from a
Right.
development standpoint, but it's that goal you're kind of constantly working toward and everything. And I think that was the best thing for me at that time because I was kind of in that middle area and me just saying like, okay, I'm not going to play summer ball now. I'm not going to look for another team. I'm going to focus on my player development, help me take that next jump to become a better player and everything like that.
And I'll say that the player development, obviously, a lot of it has to do with the physical aspect, but mentally too, it helps you, like you said, you're not focused on a result, as in you need to perform today, right? Like you need to perform and get the results in game today, right? It's a slow burn when you're in that development process. And I think that's important because that kind of makes you prioritize and focus on the process, not the result, right? So every day you're focused on, all right, I need to do this to the best ability that I can possibly do, right? I need to be meticulous in the way that I operate, in the drills that I do, in the prep work that I do, in the bullpens that I throw. Where when you're in season and you're playing a lot of games, a lot of that can get lost because you are chasing results, right? And it's like you're chasing that performance where same thing when you're in your development period, right? If you wake up and your body feels terrible and you're supposed to go throw a bullpen, you could say, "Hey, I can switch this and go throw tomorrow." If you're in summer ball and your body feels like crap, you're not going to be like, "Hey, do you mind? Can I start tomorrow and we switch that guy and throw him today?" Like, no, you're in performance mode. You got to go throw. So it really capitalizes on the process and finding out what works for you, right? And ultimately, I feel like that can help bleed into the season where it's like, all right, I found a process that works for me throughout this development period, and I can implement that now in game, right? And especially if you're in that development period in the summer and you go back in the fall, a lot of most programs play a ton of games in the fall, right? A ton of inter squads. They play a ton of games against other schools, whatever it is, right? In the fall, that's where you can implement, okay, I have this routine that I used all summer. I have this development program. Now I can slowly mold it the way that I want in the fall that allows me to use it for in-game situations as well. Allows me to prepare for the actual game performance, which I feel like is really important. But you also said something that I wanted to ask you about too. Was freshman year summer, like going into sophomore year, was that when you played in, was that when you went to Kokomo or was that sophomore year?
That was sophomore year, going to my junior
Okay.
year.
So freshman year though, right? You said you went from playing, you got 30 at bats freshman year, and then you came back and played 90% of the games
Right.
sophomore year. So, you and I played on the same summer league team. It was Tri County freshman going into sophomore year. And I was the same way. I got like 5 innings my freshman year. And same thing, that was something where I needed more game experience. I needed more confidence in game. What kind of confidence did that bring you that even though, we're in the Tri County League, that's not really a well renowned collegiate summer ball league, but like, what kind of confidence did that give you getting the experience in game all summer? Because we were playing against a lot of guys that were still in college or had just graduated college, right? It's still like pretty competitive men's league, like men's league in general. So, What kind of confidence did that give you coming back into your second year?
Yeah, I think it did a tremendous amount for me. I kind of had more, I guess, meaningful at bats to the end of my
Yeah.
freshman year. So kind of it helped me take what I had been working on at the end of that year, kind of found some like results with, go into the summer and just continue to grind at that. And so like when I would step in the box that summer, I just remember it was like the first time it was kind of like free, easy, like that was the first time I think I played baseball where I was just like, okay, like the coach is not getting, fired if we lose a game, right?
Right,
Like
right,
it
right,
didn't
right.
feel like there was that type of pressure and like there's no pressure of like getting benched. So it really felt like I don't want to say it felt like practice games because we never treat obviously we never treated it like
Of
that. Like we,
course,
we
of
went
course.
out and tried to like win the game, but like
Right.
it kind of allowed me to be like, okay, well, what if I approached it like this, right? So finding that kind of like flow, kind of finding that rhythm in game really helped me go into that fall because I remember being in that fall and I felt way more confident. I wasn't really worried about like okay, like if I don't get a hit here, like I'm getting 20 at bats this year. I was just kind of like went up and just like swung, and I just remember being like super aggressive that summer, and then coming back in the fall and being like super aggressive. And I remember like that I was obsessed with Trevor Story, which
Right,
only a
right.
couple of people I remember being. And Trevor Story had kind of that, a lot of Rockies kind of had that like hang, kind of like leg
Yes.
swing,
Yep.
leg kick type of deal. I just remember saying to myself, I'm like, well, I really struggled last year trying to be like a spray hitter and like hit the ball over the field. And so like I remember in the summertime, I was like, what if I do this like little leg hang and just try to like put everything through center field or like pull it. And so I remember going in that season, I was just like, all right, like I'm just going to try to do that in the fall. I'm like just going up there and like hacking, and then, like it just turned into like okay, well, you know, pitchers see a guy who's hacking, even if I'm not even hitting the ball that well. It's like well, you can't really miss in certain spots, so that guy has to be a little bit more fine with how he's pitching. And so like I was like, wow, like this is working in the summertime. Like let's bring it to the fall, brought it to the fall, and like it helped work for me and everything. And so like that summer was instrumental in just not only that next year, but kind of setting me up as I moved forward in everything for like a 4 year career. But like, that I think that freedom, that no pressure type of like baseball, it's laid back and like no one's getting on you if you strike out, in Tri County, right? Like
Right.
now you mentioned Kokomo. Had I gone to Kokomo after my freshman year, I don't know if I,
Right.
end up even having a good year in college because I've been like, A, I'm overmatched. B, I've never seen this before. And C, I don't belong. I would have been like, kind of just like spinning. Honestly, I probably been spiraling just every single time I stepped in the box. I would have felt that constant pressure to go out and like, have to win the at bat, have to win the result and everything like that. You know, and I know you said 5 innings for you. You go and pitch in Tri County and everything. And I don't know how many you pitched that first year, but it set you up also for getting other opportunities in summer ball, kind of like down the line and everything. How did that kind of affect you? Not only that, I mean, we know what happened that next year,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. No. I'd say yeah. No. Definitely. Like I think the biggest piece that I pulled away that I relate with you was my freshman year. Our team was like 500, and it was a very tense environment. Just like how the season played out. Like we definitely didn't play up to what our potential held for ourselves. So I feel like that was tough all year, and just being in that environment, like we had some peaks where we were like, wow, this team can play, and then we had some moments where we're like, man, not so much. And literally, I think we were 500 and then 500 in conference, like 500 at home, 500, like we were about as middle of the pack as you could possibly get. But then going into that summer, right, it was like, okay, it's more relaxed. You can kind of go in there and just throw. There's nothing on the line really, right? Like you win or lose a Tri County game when you come home, you're like, you know, whatever. I played, I had fun, we developed today, whatever it was. So that piece was nice. It was also nice that for me, after having a shaky freshman year where I got the ball and they were like, here, we're going to give you a start. And then the start didn't go my way. And then I didn't really get an opportunity after that. I got like 2 bullpen opportunities, but not really a start after that. Going into sophomore year, like at the end of my year review, coach had kind of given me like, we still see you as a starter in the future, and that's kind of what we want you to build towards. But there's still that question mark where you're not sure, right? Like going into the next year, especially having a shaky freshman year, I didn't know whether I was going to be a starter or I was going to be a reliever, and obviously either spot you were going to have to earn that. So I was able to get relief appearances in our league and starts in our league. I think for the most part, I think I closed, if I remember correctly.
Right.
But
Yep.
I did get some starts, but I was able to kind of do both. And I feel like mentally that helped me as well because I felt comfortable in both spots where, okay, it's start day, I feel good, I'm prepared, I'm ready to go. And then closing, I felt the same way. So knowing that going into my sophomore year, like sophomore fall, I kind of felt okay, I'm flexible and adaptable either way, where I know I can be successful in either role, whatever it is that they choose, right? Whether they want me to come out of the pen, whether they want me to be a starter, like I'm ready and prepared for both. I think my goal was definitely to be a starter again because I think that's, what I went in trying to be, and I didn't get a great first shot. Like, not I didn't get a great first shot. Like, I didn't make the most of my first shot.
Right.
So the competitor inside you wants to go back and try it again and do it again and succeed this time. So I think for me though, that summer was like, okay, there's a lot to build on and improve on, and the things that I was struggling with my freshman year, you can work on even a little bit more in game. Like even when you're in your outing and competing, right? Like I could take each bullpen and work on the things that I really needed and wanted to work on. And in those outings, I could really work on the things that I really wanted to work on because, like you said, we weren't really keeping track of wins and losses in the Tri County
Right.
League. It was more just getting the reps in, getting my innings, and hopefully feeling good. So that relaxed atmosphere, allowing me to work and develop, and then pitching well, gave me confidence going into my sophomore year. Like, okay, I can do this. And like my freshman year, especially getting 5 innings during the regular season, where in the fall coming in, I pitched really well as a freshman. So I also had that confidence where, like, the negative thoughts creep in a little bit at the end of the year where it's like I only got 5 innings, like wasn't really my best showing, am I ready for this? And then summer ball comes and I'm starting to perform a little bit better again and I'm starting to feel like myself again. And I'm like, and I was like, you know what? I did throw well in the fall. Spring, not so much. But now I'm throwing well again. Like, let's just not let that happen again. What happened from the end of the fall into the beginning of the spring where something kind of got lost, right? So just making sure I was able to utilize that. And again, I think if I was in a more competitive league, like you said, I don't know if I would have been able to do that, right? You wouldn't have gotten as many opportunities and you would be playing with guys that were way above your skill level, especially at the time. And I think that would be like detrimental to me in that environment because there were so many things that I needed to work on and I needed to work through in kind of a lower stress league. But going into then like your second year, because you said, right, you were in a league where you were with a lot of talent that was better than you, and then I was in a league after my junior year that was kind of similar, where I felt like I was in a league where a lot of people were, better skill wise than you are. You said it helped you a ton, where I felt like I had a different experience with that. So I would love to hear your perspective, and then I can go into my perspective why I kind of felt the opposite. But why do you think that helped you so much after getting an opportunity your sophomore year, having a pretty good year, knowing you still had to develop some things, but like ultimately getting more game time under your feet?
Yeah, I think for me it was just kind of knowing where I was kind of at in general with where our team was at, where I needed to be at, and just kind of where I needed to go. We just graduated our starting first baseman who was there. He was integral part in helping me grow. He was there my freshman year, and then we just finished my sophomore year. So going to sophomore summer, I'm like, oh, I'm that guy now. Like, I'm like, I
Yeah.
gotta be able to
Right.
figure out how to like take that next step forward. And I was lucky enough, to be able to played. My head coach Matt Howard, he was our assistant coach my freshman year at Chestnut Hill, and then he had left, went to a different school, and then he was the head coach of this Kokomo Jackrabbits in the Prospect League. And so, we had a kid from Ball State. He was still playing, so I had to sign a temp contract. Went there, I think it was like 4 games, came back home because he was ready. He gets married that summer. I get an opportunity to kind of go back out and go out there again. So I was like, wow, all right, well, let's go. And so, I was able to be out there and really kind of learn how to compete against, better players. And I think that's where it helped me the most. I didn't have a good junior year. So like coming off that season, I didn't have a good junior year at all. I had an excellent fall because I think the talent I had just faced coming back to the talent that we had, it just didn't match up. Like there was
Right.
Barnes getting drafted out of the prospect league at that time. So I'm like, every single pitch was like mental grind, just like trying to win it, trying to win it, trying to win it. And then you come back home and it's like, 92, 94 turns into 85, 86. It feels like someone's throwing a beach ball at you. So you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm ready. Like
Right.
I can
Right.
hit this. So like, it was a lot. It became a lot easier. And then kind of going into my junior year, I think just having that experience and everything, it kind of helped me. Not helped me. It kind of hurt me because I think I just was trying to do too much to try to like live up to being like I had to be that guy for our team and everything. I just had to be another piece of the puzzle. Hindsight's 2020. But I think what really helped me that summer and how I developed was being able to have those conversations with other guys. One of my teammates, Lance Mays, he was awesome. He was at I think Lance was at ETSU at the time, and then he went to Memphis.
Okay.
But he was a highly regarded player in like where he was at, and I remember him coming in and like he just timed up fastballs like none other. Like my man hopped off a plane, hopped in a game, and was like 3 for 5 with like a jack. I'm like, okay. I'm like, he's pretty good. So I'm like,
Yeah,
being
okay.
able to be around that kind of guy, and then other guys on my team, they were fantastic too. And so like they really helped me kind of grow and like help me find confidence as well. I remember one of our second basemen, Logan Barnes, shout out Barnesy, and Barnes, we had a conversation. We were on the road one day, and I was like, coming here, I didn't know if I even belonged, playing here. I just came from being a part-time player in college, and now here I am. And he was just like, well, he's like, that's your problem. He's like, if you believed in yourself, you belong. I'm like, okay, well, that helps me. I'm like, here's a guy that doesn't know me. He doesn't have to say nice things to me. He's like,
Right.
yo, like you belong, man. Like you just have
Right.
to like believe that yourself. And I was like, all right, cool. And like, yeah, again, didn't show that at all my junior year, but like going to my senior year, that kind of helped me. These experiences kind of led up to that point. And I think, had I gone back to Tri-County, I probably have a good summer again, but like I probably don't find that level of confidence, but I also don't get tested to that level. So I don't know where it kind of goes after that. And then my junior year, when at NYCBL, my team folded, I was kind of like, I got to go and train at this point. It's too late. If I don't go to Kokomo, I'm probably still searching for a summer league for that junior year. I don't go out and train. So then it doesn't lead me to my senior year. So it was like everything kind of happened for a reason and everything like that. But I think playing against better competition than where I was at the time definitely helped me develop and kind of grow as a person, as a player, and just as a competitor overall and everything.
Yeah. No, I know your experience in Kokomo, you had a really good one, and you played against some awesome guys and really talented guys. So that's cool and really good for your development. But yeah, I think the interesting thing that you talked about too was like the differences in your summer where so your junior summer going into senior year you were going to play in the NYCBL, was that what
Correct.
it was?
Yep.
NYCBL, and then the team fell through, and then so then you went to PDS, right? And then developed, so then you started getting into your like player development aspect portion of like your collegiate off season, I guess. So I'd love to hear like your mentality going into that, because obviously I feel like a lot of guys almost would prefer, especially as a competitor, you'd prefer to go play summer ball and play in the games because that's fun, right? But like you were kind of in the thick of the development side, right? Like you were in the grittiness of that where every day you're working on getting better, you're having live ABs, you're working on drill work intensely, you're lifting a ton, right? Like can you talk about your mindset going into that, especially versus the previous summer where you were playing, all summer long?
Yeah, the truth of the matter is, like, I had terrible junior year. I mean, it was bad. We made a championship, right? So we all, like, you look back on it, that was our worst offensive year as a school, and like, but we found a way to make a championship. Coach Bratt, A plus man, always one of the greatest coaches. So like he got us there, knowing we didn't have the best team, right? And so like we lose in a championship, do or die game for conference. And so like I kind of remember just being like I felt played out a little bit, just like mental grind. Like I had the summer last year in Kokomo, was such a positive experience. This was supposed to be like my step up year. This was supposed to be a great year for me, and it wasn't. And mentally I was really just like fried. So like when the NYCBL fell through, I wasn't even like upset. I was kind of just
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
yes. I was like,
Yeah.
I get to stay
It's a
home.
sign.
I don't. Yeah. I was like, I don't have to go to New York. I don't have to do all the travel. I don't have to worry about like host family, all the things that come with like summer league and everything like that. So I was like, I don't have to worry about like doing the social aspect, all this stuff. So PDS, I'd known Ches for a while, probably like 3 years at that point in time. They had guys coming through like Christian Walker. They had like a young Anthony Volpe was there. So they had a lot of like younger guys that are coming through the building. So like I'm watching this on social media, and this is like the beginning of like that social media development like
Right.
area.
Yes.
So I'm like, it's local to me. I know this guy, so I was like, I'm gonna go and give it a try and everything like that. You know, they were great with helping me like develop and everything. Just kind of understanding, like I didn't know how to use my body, like in my swing, stuff like that. And so they did meditation. They introduced me to meditation. So like they did a lot of good things that kind of helped me help put me in a spot where I was able to have a good last year of college baseball and everything. Unbeknownst to a lot of people, there was a guy who was training there. He doesn't get drafted. He comes back, kind of help guys out a little bit, named Jared DeHart. Jared DeHart is a major league hitting coach. He was super smart, super, integral, and I think helping out a lot of us that went there around that time frame out, just, here and there, helping us out and everything. And so, like, he helped me out a ton as well, kind of helping me work through all that stuff. And so I think being able to do that summer, that was like the first time I was like, wow, like my body feels fresh. Like I worked on a mental aspect where I don't think in the past I've ever actually attacked my mental game ever, right? Like just kind of being an overthinker. And so, they helped me kind of get mind, body, soul, just kind of like walking in like the right path. And then I'm also working on like being better to have a better year. So it was almost like it felt to me like every single day I walked in there was like this is the last go. Like this is my last ride. So it was like you give everything you have. I got injured that summer lifting and everything, so I had to walk away for like 2 weeks. And in the middle of like if you retool your swing, you take 2 weeks off. Man, it's just
It's tough.
it's tough. So like coming back, I'm like, man, shoot, like I gotta do this and like it's summertime, I'm like I'm probably not getting drafted. I'm not getting picked up. I don't know. So I'm like, you know what? I'll take a vacation here. So it's like, but it was nice to be able to do that. I remember at the time, like, you go on vacation, you go, you're hurt. You're like, man, someone else is getting better than me. I had a bad year. I'm trying to help my team win a championship next year and everything. And so it's like, you feel guilty, but it was like, it was much needed,
Yeah.
for
Right.
me to be able to do that. And like, my body was so like torn to shreds already that like nothing that they did got me hurt that summer. Like
Yeah.
lifting,
Yep.
like it was all on my own. It was just doing something I love. I love deadlifting, and like I'm deadlifting, and like I get hurt, and I'm like working up on my sets. I'm like I'm not even like pulling like a heavy load just yet, and I'm like, all right, why am I hurt? I'm like my body's just done, and like
Giving out. Yeah.
that's the thing we talked about earlier. Like you train, and you get your body right, or you go and play summer ball and like you continue to beat up your body, but it's valuable and for what it's worth, right? So like I'm like, man, I could have just gone and played summer ball and then got hurt, right? So I'm like, man, I don't know what to feel, but it was like I think truly like them having that mental aspect and everything, like it helped me recover. It helped me come back and be able to even keel mentally so that when I got back to training, like, yes, there's going to be frustrations because I came off an injury. Yes, there's going to be frustrations because I'm in this like training mode, retooling stuff. But like it ended up like I'm so happy like at the end of the day, like the end product was a good senior year. You know, it worked out like for the best and everything. And it became something that like where I was like, wow, like I'm glad I did this at this point in time. And like if guys ask me, like when we coached, travel ball and everything, if guys ask me like, hey, like what do you think I should do this summer when they come back from college? I'm like, you should definitely go and like train, find a place that fits what you need to do and what you hope to accomplish and like go for it and like do it. And then, they're like, hey, what should I do? Oh, go play summer ball, go to a league that's better than where you're at, find confidence, stuff like that. And so like kind of helped in that light and everything of that nature.
Yeah. No, and I think your experience was one too where, like you said, a lot of the pieces that were added was also finding how to utilize your body and be the person that you wanted to be and like the player you wanted to be. Because obviously, right, it's like rehauling your swing to a certain extent, like lifting a lot, like really repurposing all parts of your game. But a lot of that is you kind of finding a new identity through that, right? Like going through that whole development process, like you said, you're kind of feeling out how your body should feel when you swing, how you should feel when you're going through this, especially after you said a junior year where you didn't perform to the level that you thought that you were capable of, right? Like rehauling that summer is probably way more important than going out and playing in a summer league. So like the NYCBL team that fell through, like that's definitely a blessing in disguise. Definitely big time. But yeah, no, and I'd say with the summer ball experience that I had, mine was kind of, I'd say mine was different, I guess. So after my sophomore year, I knew that as the year went on, I could feel my body getting more and more tired, and I felt like I wasn't throwing as hard, my stuff wasn't as sharp. So the biggest thing for me was going to be putting on more weight and lifting more, getting stronger. So I was able to find, somewhere where I could go work out, and I was on a more consistent regimen. I was interning at the time, so I would go to my internship and then I'd go lift after and I'd throw afterwards. So I was kind of getting in a rhythm there. I was lifting more than I ever had before. My body was getting crushed because that was the first real like intense lifting I guess I ever did. But it was all great. It was all super beneficial. And then I came back, I guess, fall junior year and felt fantastic. I felt ready to go, right? I felt like I had a different strength, a different body. I felt great. So then, yeah, going into junior year and then the season, I didn't really have the season that I wanted or lived up to my expectations. Team wise was phenomenal. Like won our conference, went to regionals. That was fantastic. So like one of the best years of baseball I've ever been a part of. But I think individually there was a lot more for me to still strive for after the season ended. And I think, as I've talked about plenty of times, my main issue in my pitching career was control issues. And that was definitely prevalent my junior year with a lot of wild pitches, a lot of walks, hit by pitches, and just a lot of pitches thrown in general, right? Like a lot of wear and tear on the arm by the end of the year. And I think going into that summer, like my goal for senior year personally was, getting a look, getting drafted, playing professional baseball after college. So the next route, obviously, to get more exposure would be going in a collegiate summer league that you can get that exposure. So I ended up playing in the ACBL, and is it the ACBL or is it ABCL?
ACBL.
That's terrible. Yeah. Okay. So I played in that summer league, and I went in and I was still pitching and getting innings, and my stuff did not feel great. My body didn't feel great. I was still walking a ton of dudes. I was getting hit around. It was just not the experience I think I should have been having. About halfway through, I had inflammation in my forearm, so stopped throwing. But from that point on, I guess that was like July, maybe end of June when I cut it. I then worked on a lot of like my weightlifting still, right? I was still trying to get in the gym as much as I could. I was working on a lot of dry drills for the mound. I was working on my mental game. I was lucky enough to work with a mental skills and sports psychologist going into my senior year because I feel like that was a big piece of my game. I kind of felt like my mojo got lost a little bit, especially going from the end of the season where I didn't perform to the level I thought I could, and then going into summer where I definitely wasn't. You kind of lose your mojo a little bit, and you need that confidence back. So working with her was really important, and understanding that, okay, now the development piece is probably the most important aspect of this because I need to change some things. I need to work on a lot of things in order to perform as best as I can come my senior year. So for me, right, in that scenario, if hindsight's always 2020, but if I could go back and change one thing from that experience, it's probably saying, hey, like, threw a lot of innings this year, I threw a lot of pitches. I might as well either take more time off and say I can throw minimal innings in a league come end of June or July, or just not play summer ball at all and work solely on development, because I felt like that was when I was able to kind of key in and work on those things aggressively and really meticulously. So then same thing, I could come back senior year and have a successful senior year and kind of play a little bit more up to my potential than I thought I did my junior year. So I thought that was super important, especially going from a junior year where your body is so beat up, and then mentally it's even exacerbated past that, where
For sure.
When you don't perform to the level that you put the expectations for yourself, that has a big wear and tear on you. So I didn't even think I had a breather after the season was over to be like, what just happened and how can I kind of improve for this, because I just jumped right into a summer league right after that.
Right. I think, for you, right, like it's like the steps, right? Like we didn't mention it, but you go from freshman summer, you win player of the year, pitcher of the year in your conference for your sophomore year. Then you go into your junior year, and it's not exactly what you want it to be.
Right.
And then
of course.
right after, you turn right around, play some more summer ball.
Right. Yeah.
Your stuff's not what it should be. You're like, my issues are still here. And, then obviously mentally you're like, where can I go from this aspect and everything? And like, I think that like, and we always talk about like how we've walked a very linear line in terms of just like life, performance, stuff like that, where it's like,
yeah, definitely.
Freshman year, we don't play that much. Sophomore year, it's our best year to that date, right? I'm not pitcher or player of the year. No, you're way better than me. So we get to junior year, and it's a step back from where our sophomore year was at. And then you go into your senior year, and you're like, or you're going into your senior year, you're like, I need to pick it up. But it's like, it's double the pressure at that point, because it's like, I can't just have a better year than I had last year. I have to have a better year than my best year, which was my sophomore year.
Of course.
And it's like that feeling of, did I take a step back? Or it's like, it's kind of like shame. On my part, I felt shame because I'm like, man, like I thought I was so prepared my junior year to go in, play well, and it didn't work. And I'm like, was I too confident in like my own like talent? So I'm like, man, like it's humbling. Like I remember like getting to like that summer, like I'm like, man, I'm smiling less. I'm like, shoot, I don't even want nobody to like notice me. Like no one's noticing me. But like, like I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm like, I just want to like put in this work and like give that last year everything I got. Not for myself, but for my team.
Of course.
But it's like, at that time, it's like, hey, if you're going to be one of the guys your team's calling upon, like you need to have a good individual performance because they are going to go off of you as well. So it's like one of those deals and everything. And like, I think that mental side, like I know we're talking a lot about like, summer ball and then, the development aspect, like at some point, like you have to develop your mental, you have to develop your brain and like really reflect. We talk about the self-reflection when you get into those exit meetings and everything. Like that self-reflection needs to happen after that, not just for your performance, but take inventory. Take inventory of like how you're feeling. Take inventory
Right.
of like, hey, if this goes this way, how am I going to handle that? Hey, if this goes this way, like how am I going to handle that? And like where am I at right now and how can I get to where I need to go mentally? Like cuz that can be a demon of just going competition after
Right.
competition after competition. Then you go into a summer season and it's just like, we said our freshman year, it's that freedom. It doesn't really matter. And it's like you're kind of getting better. And then you go into like a summer league and after you didn't have a good year, then you have a bad summer and you're like, oh my gosh, like where do I run to? And like
Right.
me and you had a lot of conversations. I remember like parking my car my senior year before the season started. Like we're calling each other, talking for 1 hour, 2 hours on the phone and everything, just trying to like not only find ourselves, but like see what each other is going through and kind of how that can help one another kind of get to the performance where we want it to go and everything.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and especially having a bad summer after a I hate calling it a bad spring because it definitely was not.
No.
I I definitely helped the team win and we won our conference championship. I was lucky enough to be able to pitch in that game and we did win. I didn't pitch fantastically, but the big takeaway from that game that I think helped me move into the senior year was like I had a really rough, I think it was third inning maybe. I think I pitched 6 innings. Had a really rough third inning. I let up 2 home runs, and after that I went 3 scoreless innings after that. And I remember that was the thought going into my senior year as like, okay, right? Like even though my back was against the wall in that at that moment when my team needed me most, I was able to come back and give 3 zeros in a row, right? Like I was able to do that. So that kind of gives you the confidence to do that. But like you said, it takes a big toll on your mental when you don't perform to the level that you think you're capable of. And I felt like my junior year was a weird one because I remember pitching against Haverford at Haverford. I have this vivid memory of warming up and I felt like in my bullpen, I'm like, I figured it out. Like, this is good. I feel great, whatever. And I got rocked. And I was like, oh no. Like, it was one of those moments where you feel like you understand it now. You're like, all
Yeah.
right, I'm good. Like, we're ready. This is the turning point for my season. And you're just wrong. You get humbled real quick. But mentally, right, like that takes a toll on you. And then going into the summer where it just continues, that takes a toll on you. And if I knew now, if I knew then what I know now, I'd be able to say, take a break, take a step back, like take a week or two off completely. Just like go relax, go hang out at the beach, go do something else besides this. Because I feel like I was so obsessed about, okay, let's figure this stuff out right now, where sometimes there is value in taking a step back, recovering, not just physically, but mentally. It's just as important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think now, like, having more places where you can kind of go get development and like almost now too, you can kind of test trial it by just like looking online, just seeing like what type of
Right.
stuff like these places do. It's super important just because like when it does come time to choose, like at the end of the day, you also have to choose the right one. Like, because if
Right.
you go to a place that, they might be about development, but they're going to get you worse, or you might not be the fit for what they do, right? Like it's going to be counterproductive. And so, having more options not necessarily is a good thing, but like they're also, I don't want to estimate there is pressure in picking a place that you're going to call home for the summer where you're going to go and develop and everything like that. And then obviously you have to do it at the end of the day. But back in our time, like not even that long ago, there was no places that are like, hey, we're doing this player development thing. Like they were like things of lore and legend at that time. Like you hear about like Texas Baseball Ranch, and now they have social presence and you know people go down there and develop. But like at the time, it's like you hear from them. Someone went there. You hear it on a major league broadcast. You see it in a magazine, and you're just like, I wonder how people get into this place. Like now you have the option to go all these different places, and there's all these different products, and there's all these different trainers and philosophies and everything like that. And you do have to choose the right one at the end of the day for you and yourself to be able to take that next step forward. It's not just show up at a place and you're going to get better. And, at the end of the day, I think for where I was at, I don't think that it would have been as worth it for me if they also didn't work on the mental side. Something I didn't know going into it that they were going to do. So having that first time exposure, I was like, I can really get behind this. So like it made it feel more authentic, that they're not just like, hey, we're just going to retool swings and do all this stuff, right? It's like, hey, we're going to help you be able to have a clearer mind, like be a better thinker. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I can. I'll give you my money. Here you go.
I also feel like when we were in college, if you said you were going into like a development program, or like you're like, I'm just going to focus on my development this summer, I feel like a lot of dudes at the time would think that was selfish. You know what I mean? Like, be like, oh, you're not going to play summer ball? Or like they would view it as lazy, when I think it's the exact opposite. I think in a lot of cases it's lazier just to be like, I'm going to go play summer ball and that's what I'm going to do. Where like, no, I'm going to focus on my development and making sure I'm fully prepared for the next season, right? Like, I feel like it was so, I guess, new, where the word wasn't even like development training, I'd feel like, when we were doing that, right? Like, if you didn't play in a summer league, it was almost kind of like, what were you doing, right? Like, so then what did you do all summer? And it's like, well, I worked on like the things that I needed to work on. It was just kind of like a foreign concept, but I think it's fantastic that that's coming around now. But
100%.
You said too the mental piece, right? And that's a really important piece to kind of analyze and go over come the summer, right? And when we talk about the mental side too, it's not just like, okay, practice your breath work, right? Well, when you are in the summer leagues, you are able to practice your breath work a little bit easier, right? Because they are a little lower stress. And if you can master your breath work in those situations in lower stress environments, you can hopefully be able to slowly make that muscle memory and replicate that in a little bit higher stress. And you can take that into your fall season, and then that fall season you can take it into the spring season. But we're not even just talking about that, but thinking mentally also means thinking strategically. So the whole piece of this that we're talking about, of like finding out what's best for you, a lot of that is mentally thinking about, okay, well, strategically, what's going to put me in the best possible scenario to help my team win come next summer. And a lot of pieces and a lot of players, I'd say, might not know what exactly that is, or do know, but they're in such a mental block, such a mental cage, that they don't really know how to get it out and talk through with someone. Where I feel like if you can find a mental performance coach or a mental skills coach that you can work with, they can really help get that out of you, that they're not going to be the ones that tell you this is the right program to follow. It's going to come out of you. You're going to be able to express that, because the conversations you have, you're going to say, okay, what's going to come out? My priorities are going to come out. What's important to me? What can I do to improve? What didn't go my way this year? What really bugged me about this year? What was a big win from this year, right? There's a lot of takeaways that you can get from working with a coach on the mental skills side of things, that you can lead into, okay, now I have a game plan going into the summer, going into the fall, and then going into my season next year.
Yeah, I mean, it helps so much. Like, you're not really walking in the dark at that point. Like, it's like you're flicking on lights as you go along, right? You can see like your path becoming clearer. But like, if you're not really working on that, you're kind of just like aimlessly wandering like in the dark. It's just, it makes no sense not to, work on it. Honest to God. I mean, at the end of the day, like, if you can't afford a coach or if you don't want to go to a coach, like there's so many things at your disposal. Use the internet, read a
Right.
book on
Yep.
mental, toughness or mental training in baseball or in any sport or just in general, and try to just practice the methods and those different philosophies and see what works for you and what gets you to be able to compete at a higher level than what you're at right now and everything. And I think that is probably the most underrated aspect about an off season. Like everyone wants to do the physical and do the mental because it's going to help you when you're actually counting stats and everything like that. If you get benched a summer game, it's not the end of the world, and you're probably not even feeling like it's the end of the world. You get benched in the spring, you're like, man, this stinks. So make sure
Right.
you're not getting into those situations where in the spring you're like, man, I wish I had done X, Y, and Z. Like turn over every single stone so that when you get to that point in the spring, you're like, you feel prepared for battle, you feel good and ready to go and everything.
Yeah, and I think a blueprint for some of those mental questions to get you prepped could be like, hey, what were our weaknesses from this year? What were our strengths from this year, right? What would you change about this year if you had the power to do so? What are the first steps, like what's the first thing you could do today to help us improve and get the ball rolling? What are some obstacles that are in your way when you're performing these tasks, right? Like what would stop you from performing the things that you want to perform, right? Simple questions like that you can evaluate with yourself are super important to help you build momentum. Just like Kyle Massey said last episode, right? I'm on a winning streak, right? How can you get that winning streak? How can you build that momentum, right? It's creating a plan so every single day you can attack it and get better and better and better. Because especially I feel like when you're not in a structured plan, just like you are during the season, when one day goes by and nothing improves, and then that turns into two quickly turns into five quickly turns into 10, right? Like that snowballs really quick. But so does winning, right? You have 2 days in a row where you threw and lifted and felt great, right? Now that third day, you hit your recovery real hard and you lift it again. Okay, great. You're building momentum, right? It becomes your muscle memory, it becomes your habit. Now you have that routine structured where every day you're working on something to get better. And I think that's ultimately going to be the most important part, whether you do play summer ball or you do focus on your development, whatever it is, right? It's creating that structure and something that works for you. And whether that's you figuring that out on your own, you working with a coach in order to help you with that is going to be the most important thing in order to win. Because if you go into that summer and you don't have a plan, you're going to come out in the fall and you're going to perform the same way that you did this past spring, right? Like you've got to go in with a plan of attack. And if you aren't ready for that, then you should go talk to someone that can help you get ready for that.
And be self-disciplined enough to execute it once you're there.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. Your winning streak is a byproduct of your self-discipline. Your losing streak is also a byproduct of your lack of self-discipline
Right.
and everything. And that's, you nailed it on the head, man. That's right there.
Yeah, no, and like you said, the self discipline too. That aspect is like, think about at that point, like, how are you going to feel if you don't accomplish the things that you want to accomplish, right? Like, that's a powerful thought, right? Let's say next year I perform the same way I did this past year that I wasn't happy with, right? Like, that's tough, man. That's tough. That's a tough feeling, and that should be a piece of the thought that you should have, right? Is like, that's not what I'm chasing. I want to chase my potential. I want to chase the things that I want to get after. And building that winning streak, like building that snowball effect of moving forward and going forward, right? If you get 1% better every day, by the time you get to the fall, you're gonna be a completely new player. So like that's just gotta be the aspect of slowly, slowly, slowly chipping away. And I think we're gonna do an episode on this at some point, but I'd also like to give a quick shout out to the players who, when their season is over, right, and it is now the end of their career, right? They're seniors, they're graduating. We feel for you. It's a really tough period of time, right? your identity has been so tied to the game of baseball, whatever sport it was, but specifically in this case, baseball, since you could walk, since you could throw a ball, since you could swing a bat. And it's tough to find a new outlet for that, and it takes a lot of time, right? Like, it's something that never leaves you, right? Like, for the rest of your life, you will be a baseball player, whether you play currently or not. And some of you will continue to be in the game, whether that's coaching, whether that's another opportunity professionally. The game never truly does leave you. And even when you become a father, maybe you coach your kids in sports, their competitiveness is always there. But I just wanted to quickly say, we feel for you. We understand how hard that is and how hard it is to let go of something that's been a part of your life for so long. And even though that next step of life is going to be really scary, it's also really exciting because now you can do things that you could never do over the last however many years when you were, competing and playing. So, from the both of us, we feel for you, and we're definitely excited for, the next part of your journey and you kind of finding your new identity outside of baseball. Definitely. Yeah, but I think this is a good place to wrap it up. Definitely good conversations about development versus getting some game experience versus the mental preparation going into the summer. So definitely appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. Matt, great episode as always. Appreciate you. And have a good one, everyone. Thanks for listening.